Good morning, everybody. It's 24th of November. It's like a little after 11 in the morning here. 2022. Turkey Day. Thanksgiving. Well, we don't get Thanksgiving over here. But I'll tell you what, I'll do you one better. In Belarus, you get two Christmases. So you get the, I guess they call it here a Catholic Christmas, although we have other denominations of Christianity here. I mean, a Western Christianity. And you also get the Orthodox Christmas, so you get two Christmases here. So we are better than you are. So anyway, it's snowing. Сейчас снег идет, I guess is what you would say in Russian, that it's at the moment it's snowing. So I'm learning something in class anyhow, but I'm not here to talk about my great knowledge of Russian, which I'm imagining to have, but to talk a little bit about some of these stories that I saw this week in the news. Normally I'd be in class right now, but teacher's sick, so I'm having some days off, unfortunately. I'd like to keep this thing going because when the time falls out like this, then classes are pushed a little bit longer, so the day I missed today, we have to make up for at some other time in the future. That's not so good. But anyway, what I'm going to talk about is some of these stories that were on RT in particular this past week. And one of those I want to talk about is this. There's a former Ukrainian soldier who was in what's called the 80th Brigade, which is based out of Galicia, which is a former country that makes up a major part of what is now today Ukraine. And I think even back in, say, 1940s, it was still, there was no Ukraine at that time. I think Ukraine became a country essentially, I think in 1991, even though they say that it goes back to thousands of years before BC, so it's not, you can take it as you will. But anyway, this soldier, he was unnamed, but he's talking out about the training they had. Even before the beginning of this special military operation by Russia, they were taught to hate Russians. That is one of the main parts of their training. And of course, some of their trainers were NATO members, from NATO countries, to include the United States Marine Corps. Don't tell Scott Ritter I said that. No, he'll probably not take that very happily. And don't get vaccinated. That's another thing. So, if you realize that the place where this 80th Battalion was centered is it's in, what is it? Gosh, I don't even remember the name. But Lvov, beautiful city, I guess. I've seen pictures of it, and was the capital of Galicia at that time, and I guess you could still say it's a capital of Galicia. But that is where Stefan Bandera comes from. Even though it's a beautiful city, it's not a very beautiful ideology. And a sad thing is that that's the beginning of this, at least in Eastern Europe, this ideology that was infecting Germany in the 30s and to the mid 40s. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't mention it. If I say it, starts with an N, bad word, 4-letter word. So if I mention that, I might get deleted or something like that. And nobody in Google will send my videos to anybody. But let's see, I wrote down some notes here. But anyway, back in those days, Lvov had a large Jewish population, and virtually all of them were massacred. And you're talking about all of the, what do you call it, the horrendous things that the Nazis did. And I'm not saying that they didn't do any horrendous things, but it's probably been very much overstated. But what happened there in eastern Ukraine was not overstated, and the Nazis, oops, I didn't say that. that ideology, those people in Germany that had this ideology, they were very appalled at the brutality of these people of the same mentality, the Nazis, those nutties in Galicia. They were far, far, far more brutal. And at one point, Bandera, where he comes from Galicia, he had stated that he wants to. I think they had one time massacred like 60,000 Jewish people, and he stated he wanted to cut off their heads and lay them at the feet of Adolf, the leader of that other ideology in Germany. So, just so you know. And they weren't just going after Jews, they were going after, of course, gypsies and Polish people, Russians, Belarusians, anybody that is not of the master race as far as what they're concerned. So anyway, you can see why a lot of us, such as myself, Scott Ritter, Mike Jones at I. Earl Grey, John Mark Dugan, Annie Kay, we're all kind of disgusted about this, and there's of course many, many more. Graham Phillips, the list goes on and on. Eva Bartlett, and that's why a lot of these people, they've dedicated a lot of their time and energies and do a lot of charity work to try to at least assist in maybe a non-violent way to hopefully end this ideology. And it's not like the people necessarily to blame, it's this ideology that's infected a lot of the people. What's the terrible part? And this soldier, he decided to join the side of Russia after his father was executed by those people in Ukraine. So it's sort of maybe like liberals, they all, so to speak, at least verbally online or wherever else, they all execute each other. If you're not with us, you're against us. Oh, bunch of pigeons. So, but you also hear now, I think it was mentioned on the Duran, Alex and Alexander, they were mentioning, and I've heard about this as well. I mean, you've been hearing a lot of these things that the United States has been sending a lot of soldiers into Ukraine. Of course, they've been doing it all along, but it's maybe just in smaller numbers. Now it's a little bit more, and they have now a unit. I guess I don't know if it's more than a platoon. A platoon is only about 40, maybe 50 people, 50 soldiers. So it's probably at least a company, which is 200 people that they've sent into East Ukraine, in Donbass area to try to kill Russians. I guess that's mostly aimed at going against the Wagner group. So that's something to keep in mind. And Polish people have been there for a long time, and that brings up something as well. They had these pranksters. They go by the name of Vovan and Lexus. That's not their real names, but and then they use different names. I mean, obviously they call world leaders and famous people and act like they are somebody else. Like in this case, they called the president of Poland and said they were, or the person talking said that it was Macron, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, and talking to him and finding out his opinion about the war. And he said, "Oh, we don't want to escalate against Russia," all this sort of thing. Try to say that he's a nice guy, and then according to the authorities in Poland, they said that he was realizing that there's something not quite right about this telephone conversation, so that he ended. But my take on this is that he knew all along that it was not Emmanuel Macron. I mean, it's been happening so much that they are people looking at me, that they are scamming these people. So they a lot of these leaders, they probably know what's going on, and they expect it, and maybe made themselves aware of it. So he was just trying to act like he was kind of a nice guy. Oh, we don't want to escalate Russia, as he's escalating, inviting permanent NATO military bases into his country, ordering massive amount of weapons, unseen in past recent history. So, and then threatening to, well, at least showing indications that he's preparing to possibly draft Polish young men into the military and sending troops into Ukraine. As you know, there's thousands of Poles getting killed in their Polish soldiers, and I doubt very much that those are mercenaries by the thousands. No, 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 I don't believe it at all. So, and you know, you have to realize that that he knew that this was a scam all along. So he just was playing along with it to make him look like, oh, I'm a very nice guy. You know, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but he's got something in his head. You know, a lot of these leaders of these countries, like the Chihuahua states, as Mike Jones calls them, you know, the Baltic states, you know, these little barking dog states, Latvia and Estonia and Lithuania, they, you know, they seem to have adopted this ideology to, at all costs, to hate Russia. I think they were actually planted there, these leaders, by some Western power on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, you know, to the biggest prerequisite to their job is that they have to hate Russia. So that's just my take on that. And now it's time to take advantage of this great opportunity. The CIA is recruiting in mass numbers, but of course you have to be Russian. They want Russians. You know, that's at least something. You know, you get some advantage for being Russian anyway, instead of being some of the most the new Jews or the hated people on the planet. But they're recruiting only Russians that hate Russia and hate the government of Russia. And you can guess what the CIA would be using you for. So, but anyway, you can go ahead. It's very good pay, I hear. I don't know, you don't have to learn the Russian language if you're Russian already, I guess. And let's see, the quote here was, "We're looking around the world for Russians who are as disgusted with that," meaning, of course, the Ukraine conflict, "as we are, because we're open for business." So Uncle Sam wants you know. Yeah. And it was Sergei Lavrov that came out and was just talking about all this appalling behavior of the West, of course, mostly the United States, against Russian diplomats. He said it's far worse now than it was in the darkest hours of the Cold War. All the treatment and you know, that's getting meted out. And I remember just a few years ago, it was some sort of a spat of Russian diplomats getting assassinated, and that was around the same time as that airplane full of these some of the greatest musicians, military musicians of Russia, all died in a plane crash that left Sochi. Somebody had apparently finagled something on the airplane, and of course caused the plane to crash. I think it lost altitude and crashed or something like that, all at the same time as when these diplomats were getting assassinated for no reason at all, you know. Well, I don't know, you can guess who's behind all that sort of a thing. Even Poland, I don't really know how many thousands of soldiers they've sent into Ukraine, but it's not as if they're trying to de-escalate. And you see the United States, I think, and all this stuff coming out in the press, that they're trying to urge Zelensky into negotiating. And who knows what are they trying to negotiate? Because at the same time, the U.S. just approved 4.5 billion U.S. dollars again to Ukraine, and that's just like for running the government and such, and that doesn't include the military aid. And I believe, let's see, I got a figure somewhere here. It says that in grants, just grants alone, which what that means is money that they don't have to pay back. So money that Ukraine doesn't have to pay back, coming from just the United States, is already $13 billion, and the military aid is even much higher than that. So that should make all the U.S. taxpayers very, very happy that you're supporting democracy from a country that has banned all of the opposing parties and taken over all of the media stations, television, radio, and everything else. You know, and if you don't spout the right information, you know, your days are numbered. I guess that's democracy in the modern sense now. I also read this morning that Germany is planning on recalling their troops from Mali. And I really didn't even know that they had any troops there, but it's not a very large amount of troops, and none of this story makes any sense anyway, because it's 1,100, which makes it like a large battalion. So if there's like 1,000 soldiers in a battalion, that's not that many. And then they talk about this amount of troops that Russia sent temporarily into Belarus, which is 9,000. It's not really that many either. So, and Poland has almost certainly sent in at least that many troops into Ukraine. So that's quite a bit, actually. And how many troops has Ukraine mobilized throughout all of this? I believe the number is over 800,000 troops. It's nearly 1 million over time, of course. And Ukraine kind of brags about having a 1 million-man army, but I think at the beginning of the war, at least there was 800,000 troops, at least what I've heard. And Russia sent in 200,000 troops, I think, at the beginning. These are all like some kind of estimates, and if the Russian government put out these estimates, then of course they're going to be true. But I can't even remember. You hear so much conflicting information, you get confused on how many troops they actually sent there, Russia, and how many Ukraine had. But I'm sure that it was at least 750,000, and I've heard up to 800,000 troops that they had at that time. So, 1,100 troops is what Germany has in Mali, and they need 1.5 years to take them out, and they want an extension. Annalena Baerbock, of course, wants to leave them there permanently. I think she's probably going to be in line to take Ursula von der Crazy's place as president of the European Union one day, And I don't know, my crystal ball is not, it's in the shop right now, so I'm not exactly sure, but Ursula von der Crazy, she was doing that sort of talk even when she was the Minister of Defense in Germany. So, and this new Minister of Defense, I believe, what does she want? She wants, I guess, to take these troops out. So she's not so aggressive as von der Crazy was. Von der Crazy is sort of like a female version of John McCain or Lindsey Graham, in Germany. So I guess that's why she's called von der Crazy. So France, I believe, has already been talking about taking their troops out. A lot of other countries have already taken their troops out. I didn't realize there were so many troops in Mali. But Mali, the president of Mali, had started to realize very early on, that France was actually not helping the cause. At the very beginning of all of this, when they were supposedly invaded by, apparently, ISIS, whatever ISIS means. Nobody really knew what Al-Qaeda meant even back in then days. In the Al-Qaeda days, Al-Qaeda didn't even know what Al-Qaeda meant. If you ask somebody from Al-Qaeda if they're in Al-Qaeda, they wouldn't even know what you're talking about. I guess Al-Qaeda means toilet in Arabic, and I don't think you'd name your terrorist organization Toilet. So that's kind of obvious that this name came about of anybody that opposed the U.S. Attack on Afghanistan, and I believe that the United States probably called it Al Qaeda. See, when you want to go to the bathroom, I guess you go to the Al Qaeda. So ISIS is the same thing, and I don't know. They've changed their name a couple of times too, but in any case. Mali started to realize that France was actually helping them. It sounds kind of familiar, though, doesn't it? Remember France? When the U.S. went into... what did I say, France? I meant Syria. Remember when the U.S. went into Syria to get ISIS? And ISIS kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until Russia came in. And then they started shrinking. In 1 month, I guess, half of ISIS was eliminated after Russia came in, but ISIS kept getting bigger and bigger when the United States was there. And then if you remember all of these reports, which, I should start to mention them, that, when ISIS was getting pinned down in places, getting surrounded, by the Syrian military, the United States would airlift them out with helicopters and whatnot. And then the same thing was happening to, al-Nusra. Al-Nusra is... I think al-Nusra is just a new name of Al-Qaeda, and it was the same thing going on there. And then when the U.S. was supposedly bombing ISIS, at least as far as the United States media is concerned on the news, and according to the reports in Syria, the people there were saying that these mercenaries or troops had already left a month before that, and so the U.S. was bombing dams and factories where ISIS was not there. And sometimes they were bombing like huge industrial areas of Syria where ISIS was never there in the first place. They weren't even within 100 miles of that. You know, you saw these reports. I don't know if you remember these things, but that was coming out during the major part of this war when the U.S. was launching a war against Syria. You know, it kind of makes you sick, you know. But, you know, I could talk about this sort of stuff, you know, a lot if I had time. You know, you sit there and research all of these contradictory reports of what's going on in the world. You know, like I say, yeah, it makes you sick. But anyway, France is kicked out. And a lot of people have speculated. I don't know if there's much truth to that or not, but it actually makes sense that the only reason why France was there is that, and the United States mainly, but you never hear that much about the United States being there. Maybe they were just there initially, and then maybe they had their hands full in some of their other wars all over the world. But I don't know. Are they still there? You know that there's still U.S. presence there, but I don't know how big and if it's that much military or whatever. But some people have speculated that the reason they were there is because there was a big outcry in Germany from a lot of the populace that they wanted to repatriate their gold. And you know, most of it was held in the basement of the New York Federal Reserve. You know, like a lot of countries have their gold there, or had, and I believe even Russia. I don't know if Russia still does. But it happened after World War II, and you know, when the world was kind of unstable at the time, and everybody thought that's the safest place, is that the U.S. hangs on to it, and they promised Scouts honor to take care of that gold. And anyway, Germany did get some of their gold back, and it turns out that it wasn't the same gold that they put there. It was a lot higher gold content. What Germany deposited there, and what they got back was, of course, a more inferior gold type. And France, of course, had a lot of Germany's gold, and France was giving back, sending back this gold to Germany. And this all was happening at the same time of the invasion of Mali, and Mali has a lot of gold. So that's just, maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know. I really don't know. But I know a little bit about gold mining in Africa because I had a friend who was involved in a gold mine, and you know, the Chinese are there too, so you can't just look at the United States or France or some of these Western powers when it comes down to trying to exploit the minerals of Africa. But anyway, when this was happening, trying to get rid of France, I guess they asked France to leave back in May of 2022, and Germany's not going to be leaving until like June of 2024, so quite a ways from now. But Mali wants Russia to come in, and I believe they're asking for the Wagner Group. You know, it's that private military group that's operating in Ukraine around the city of Bakhmut particularly. So that's going to be fascinating. But they trust the Russians vastly more than they trust other Western powers. I guess probably it's a track record. Russia probably has a lot better track record of at least, you know, dealing honorably with other nations rather than the West. You know, that's about all that I have to say right now. There's probably a lot of news, and I didn't really do that much preparation, but I never do. So anyway, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Okay? Till the next time.